I don't know if anyone will believe me, but I have to tell this story before it's too late. Before it finds you too. There are stories we tell for fun. Stories we tell to pass the time. And then, there are the stories that should never be told at all. The ones that linger. That sink into your thoughts long after the lights go out. Welcome to Eerie Short and Scary Stories, where the shadows have voices and the darkness is never empty. If you think you're safe, think again. Tonight, I have something unsettling for you. A story that might just change the way you see the world around you. Are you ready? Then let's begin. I've lived in Hocstat my entire life. A quiet town, tucked between endless forests of black maple trees. It's the kind of place where the air smells like damp earth and wood smoke, where people don't ask too many questions. Things have a way of being forgotten here, like old names carved into tree trunks, fading with time. But some things refuse to be forgotten. My little sister, Holly, disappeared on a Thursday. I remember because I was supposed to walk her home from school that day, but I was late. It was only 10 minutes. 10 stupid minutes. When I got to the schoolyard, she wasn't there. The teacher said she had left like always, her pink backpack bouncing against her shoulders, her blonde braids swinging with every step. She always took the same path home. 4 blocks, a right turn, and straight down Sycamore Street. But that day, she never made it. At first, I wasn't worried. Maybe she stopped at the corner store. Maybe she was playing in the park. I walked faster, then I ran. I called her name, over and over. By sunset, the whole town was looking. Flashlights cut through the woods, their beams shaking against the trees. Neighbors shouted her name. My mother stood on the porch, eyes red, clutching the phone so tight her knuckles turned white. My father paced, talking to the police, his voice sharp, demanding answers no one had. No footprints. No sign of a struggle. No Holly. People started whispering. At the diner, at the post office, in hushed conversations on front porches. It wasn't the first time. A child had gone missing before. Years ago. A boy named Daniel. He walked into the woods one afternoon and never came back. No one talked about it. Like if they ignored it, it wouldn't happen again. But it did. And deep down, I knew. Hocstat never gives back what it takes. They found him 2 days after Holly disappeared. Mr. Landry, our gym teacher. A man who used to bark at us to run faster, push harder, stop being lazy. He always seemed too big for our small town, like he belonged somewhere louder, somewhere brighter. But he never left. Maybe Hocstat doesn't let people go. They said he was just sitting there, against a tree, legs stretched out like he had only stopped to catch his breath. But his head was tilted back too far, his eyes wide open, unblinking. And his mouth was full of something black, thick, shiny. It dripped down his chin, out of his nose, his ears. His skin looked wrong, bloated, swollen, like whatever had filled him had pushed out through every pore. The police didn't know what to say. No bruises, no cuts, no gunshot wounds. Just sap. I remember standing there, watching from behind the yellow tape as they lifted him onto a stretcher. The paramedics' gloves stuck to his skin like it was coated in glue. One of them gagged. And the smell. Not rot. Not death. Something worse. Something sweet. The kind of sweetness that makes your stomach turn, like rotting fruit left out in the sun. It clung to the air, soaked into my clothes, into my hair. I could still taste it hours later, when I sat at the dinner table and pushed my food around my plate. No one ate that night. No one talked. But everyone was thinking the same thing. The trees took him. Just like they took Holly. 3 days after they found Mr. Landry, Holly came back. I was the first to see her. Standing at the edge of the woods, where the dirt road met the trees. Barefoot. Her pink dress smeared with something dark and sticky. Her hair hung in tangled knots, bits of leaves and twigs caught in the strands. But it was her face that made my stomach lurch. She wasn't crying. She wasn't scared. She wasn't relieved to be home. She was just standing there, staring. For a second, I thought maybe she didn't recognize me, that maybe she had been hurt or lost her memory. But when I whispered her name, her head turned, slow, deliberate. And then she smiled. It wasn't the kind of smile I remembered. Not the one she used when she was excited about ice cream or when she saw a puppy at the park. It was small, careful, like she was waiting for something. By the time my mother came running, her scream breaking the silence, Holly still hadn't moved. She didn't reach for her, didn't throw her arms around her the way she used to after a bad dream. My mother pulled her in, sobbing, touching her face, checking her arms, kissing her forehead. Holly let her. That was the worst part. She let her. Like she didn't know what else to do. That night, the whole town showed up at our house. People brought food, hugged my parents, whispered about miracles and prayers answered. The sheriff came too. He asked Holly where she had been, how she had gotten home. She didn't answer. She just sat there, quiet, her hands folded neatly in her lap. My mother smoothed her hair, told him she was in shock, that she needed rest. He nodded, said he'd come back in the morning. But I knew he wouldn't get an answer then, either. Because Holly wasn't just quiet. She was listening. Not to us. To something else. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her standing at the tree lean, still as a statue. That dress. That smile. That black sap smeared across her hands like ink. Sometime after midnight, I heard it. A rustling. Soft, careful footsteps outside my window. I held my breath, staring at the ceiling, my fingers gripping the blanket so tight my knuckles ached. Then, a whisper. Not words. Not exactly. A sound. Low, humming. A voice that didn't belong to Holly. But she answered. From down the hall, her voice, flat, calm, speaking in a language I didn't know. I squeezed my eyes shut, counting seconds, waiting for it to stop. It didn't. It just got quieter, like it had moved farther away. At first, the town only talked about Mr. Landry in whispers. Parents shook their heads, said it was a shame that he had always been such a quiet man. A teacher, a neighbor, someone you passed at the grocery store and never thought twice about. But then the police found his house. And after that, no one called it a shame anymore. They called it what it was. Evil. Inside his basement, they found stacks of files, newspaper clippings, old missing posters. Some of the names were familiar. The kids who had vanished over the years, the ones everyone had assumed got lost in the woods or ran away. But there were others, too. Names no one recognized. Faces that didn't belong to anyone from our town. Then there were the pictures. Polaroids. Grainy. Faded. Some so old the edges had curled. And Holly's name was in there, too. The sheriff came to our house that night. My father slammed the door in his face the first time. Said he wasn't answering any damn questions. But eventually he let them in. I sat at the top of the stairs, listening. They asked Holly if she had ever been to Mr. Landry's house. If she remembered anything. She didn't answer. She just blinked at them, tilting her head like she was thinking. But there was no confusion on her face. No fear. And that was when I knew. She did remember. She just wasn't telling. The officers left with tight expressions, saying they'd come back another day. But I knew they wouldn't get any more out of her then, either. Because Holly was different now. She had been ever since she came back. And sometimes, late at night, I'd hear her talking. At first, I thought she was dreaming. That maybe she was whispering in her sleep. But when I crept to her room and peeked inside, I saw her sitting up in bed, her hands folded neatly in her lap, eyes fixed on the window. She wasn't talking in her sleep. She was listening. And whatever she was listening to, it was whispering back. Holly spoke to the trees. That was what I told myself whenever I heard her murmuring at night, her voice barely above a whisper. She never talked to me anymore. Never answered when Mom or Dad asked how she was feeling. But the trees? They got all her words. And one night, she let me listen. She sat on the windowsill, bare feet dangling, her back straight. The moonlight made her skin look too pale, almost like she wasn't real anymore. And then, in that slow, careful voice that wasn't quite hers, she said, "They know. I didn't ask who. I didn't have to." She turned her head slightly, just enough for me to see the corner of her mouth twitch. A smile. But it wasn't a happy one. "The trees remember everything," she whispered. "They see when bad things happen. They don't like when people take what isn't theirs." I felt cold. A deep, aching cold that had nothing to do with the night air. She wasn't lying. I could tell. And I remembered the woods. The way they swallowed sound. The way the air felt thick, like it was watching you back. I remembered the sap, black, like tar, oozing from the bark. I had seen it before. On Holly's dress. On Mr. Landry's face. I wanted to believe she was just a kid with too many nightmares. That she was making it up to explain something she didn't understand. But then I saw it for myself. The trees were bleeding. Late one evening, when the town had started to forget and pretend, I went back to the woods. I had to know. I had to see. And I did. The trees stood like they always had, tall and quiet, but something about them felt different now. Their trunks seemed darker, their roots stretched too far, as if they had moved in the night. I reached out, pressing my palm against the rough bark of one, and when I pulled my hand back, thick, sticky, black, it smelled wrong. And in the space between the trunks, deep in the woods where the light didn't reach, something shifted. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't an animal. I wanted to run, but I couldn't. Because I wasn't alone. A shape, tall, too tall, stood among the trees, watching. No eyes, no face, just a hollow space where a person's features should have been. And then, as the wind picked up, I heard it, soft, distant, like a sigh carried through the leaves. Whispering. The same whispering I had heard from Holly's room. I turned and ran, branches clawing at my arms, the ground unsteady beneath me. I didn't stop until I reached my house, my lungs burning. And when I looked up at Holly's window, she was already there. Standing. Watching. She smiled. Not at me. At the trees. I don't go into the woods anymore. I don't walk alone at night. It's been years since Holly came back, but I still hear them, the whispers. At first, I thought it was the wind, a trick of my mind, the way fear lingers long after you think you've escaped it. But wind doesn't say names. And it doesn't say mine. Sometimes, late at night, when the world is silent, I hear it outside my window. Soft. Careful. Calling. I tell myself not to listen. I tell myself to ignore it, pull the blankets over my head, block it out. But no matter how hard I try, I always end up waiting. Because sometimes, she whispers back. Holly doesn't talk much to us anymore. She moves through the house like a shadow, light on her feet, silent as if she's afraid of making too much noise. Mom and Dad think she's just adjusting. That she just needs time. But I know better. She's waiting, too. I've seen her standing outside in the yard, staring at the trees, lips barely moving. I used to think she was just mouthing words, maybe reliving something she refused to tell us. But one night, when I crept closer, I realized there was sound. A faint, almost inaudible murmur slipping through her teeth. And then, the trees answered. It wasn't in words. It was in movement. The way the branches shuddered, the way the leaves trembled without wind. A slow, rhythmic sway, like they were listening, like they were breathing. That was the first night I locked my bedroom door. I tell myself she's still my sister. That whatever happened to her, whatever changed, she's still Holly underneath it all. But I don't believe it anymore. She used to be afraid of the dark. She used to climb into my bed when storms rattled the windows, clutching her stuffed rabbit, burying her face into my arm. Now she sits by her window for hours, watching, waiting. I know one day she'll go back. I don't know when. I don't know how. But I know she will. And worse. I think she wants me to go with her. What do you think? Just another strange tale from a town no one remembers? A coincidence? A tragedy wrapped in superstition? Maybe. Or maybe the trees of Hocstat remember everything. Maybe they don't forget the names whispered through their branches. The footsteps that press too deep into their roots. The voices that call out in the dead of night, waiting for something, someone, to answer. And maybe, if you ever find yourself alone in the woods, you should listen. Really listen. Not just to the wind, but to the spaces in between. The rustling that doesn't quite match the breeze. The way the air seems to shift, just for a moment, as if something unseen has turned its attention to you. And if you hear it, if you hear them, don't stop. Don't wait. Run. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. More terrifying tales await here on Eerie Short and Scary Stories. Sleep well, if you can.